Before Zeus ever picked up a thunderbolt, before Mount Olympus had a single throne on it, the universe had a much bigger problem, a family that could not stop eating each other. Literally, there's a Greek god who ate 5 of his own children, whole, and he almost got away with it if it weren't for a rock dressed up in baby clothes. This is the story of how the Greek gods actually took power, not through some clean coronation, but through 3 generations of betrayal, castration, cannibalism, and one very well-hidden toddler on the island of Crete. It's less divine order descending from heaven, and more the most dysfunctional family in human history fighting for the throne, and every single one of them was trying to kill their own dad. So let's start at the very beginning, because before there were gods, there was just a very In the beginning, room. There was nothing, not darkness. Darkness needs something to be dark against, just chaos, an empty gap where a universe should be. And then out of absolutely nothing, things started happening. Gaia appeared, the earth itself, solid ground where there'd been none. Tartarus formed below her, a bottomless pit that would later become the worst prison in existence. And Eros showed up too, not a chubby baby with a bow, but the raw force of attraction that makes anything want to combine with anything else. Gaia, alone and understandably bored, did something no one else had ever done. She gave birth without a partner. First came the mountains, then the sea, and then, biggest of all, she created Uranus, the sky itself, to cover her completely. Here's where it gets uncomfortable fast. Gaia then had children with Uranus, her own creation. 12 of them, the Titans, 6 sons, 6 daughters, plus a set of one-eyed giants called the Cyclopes, and 3 monstrous 100-handed creatures with 50 heads and 100 arms each, strong enough to hurl mountains. And this is where Uranus, the literal sky, reveals himself to be a genuinely terrible father. He took one look at some of his stranger children, the Cyclopes, the 100-handers, and decided he didn't want them around. So he shoved them back inside Gaia, not sent away, not banished, crammed back into their mother's body where they stayed, trapped, in constant pain. Gaia was furious, and Gaia, it turns out, does not forgive. She forged a weapon, a sickle made of gray flint, sharp enough to cut through anything, and she asked her children one by one if any of them had the courage to use it against their own father. 11 of them said nothing. Silence. Fear. Only one stepped forward, Cronus, the youngest, the most ambitious. Gaia gave him the sickle and a plan. That night, when Uranus came down to lie with Gaia as he always did, Cronus was waiting in the shadows. He struck, castrating his own father in a single motion and hurling the remains into the sea. From the blood that hit the earth, new creatures were born, and from the sea foam where the rest landed, rising fully formed from the waves, came Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, born from the single most violent act in the family's history. Fitting, honestly. Uranus, defeated and humiliated, retreated from the world, and Cronus, the son who just mutilated his own father, took the throne. He would rule for an age. They called it the Golden Age. Peace, abundance, no war, no want. It sounds perfect. It was not going to last, because Cronus was about to make the exact same mistake his father made. And history, Cronus and his sister divine Rhea now ruled the cosmos, has a nasty habit of repeating itself. And for a while, it really was golden. No war, no suffering, humanity living off the land without a single hard day's work. But Cronus had a problem, and it was one entirely of his own making. Remember, he'd overthrown his own father to get this throne, and when he did it, both Uranus and Gaia gave him a warning on the way out, a prophecy, cold and specific. One of your own children will do to you exactly what you did to me. Cronus believed it completely, so he came up with a solution that even by Greek mythology standards is genuinely horrifying. Every time Rhea gave birth, Cronus took the baby from her arms and swallowed it whole. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, one after another, 5 children gone the instant they were born, not killed exactly, but trapped alive inside their father, unable to grow, unable to die. Rhea watched this happen 5 times. 5 times she held a newborn for a few seconds before it vanished forever. When she became pregnant a 6th time, something in her broke, not into grief this time, but into resolve. She went to her own parents, Gaia and Uranus, the two people on Earth who understood exactly what kind of monster Cronus could become. And together they built a plan. Rhea traveled to the island of Crete, far from Cronus's throne, and gave birth in secret, in a cave hidden in the mountains. This child she would not hand over. This one she named Zeus. To keep him safe, she found a stone roughly the size of a newborn and wrapped it carefully in swaddling clothes, the exact way you'd wrap a baby. Then she went to Cronus and handed it to him. He didn't even hesitate. He swallowed the infant whole, satisfied, certain his throne was safe forever. He had absolutely no idea he'd just eaten a rock. Back in Crete, the real threat to his rule was very much alive. Zeus was raised in hiding, fed on honey and the milk of a divine goat named Amalthea. And whenever the baby cried, which, being a baby, was often, a band of armored guardians called the Curetes would clash their spears against their shields, drowning out the sound, so that nothing would ever drift up to Cronus and give the secret away. For years this worked. Cronus ruled on, arrogant and secure, completely unaware that somewhere on Crete, the son who was destined to destroy him was growing up strong, hidden, and patient. He was about to learn that swallowing a threat doesn't make it disappear. Years passed. Sometimes Zeus grew up on Crete, that threat strong and sharp, and eventually he did something almost unbelievably bold. He walked straight into his father's court. Not as an enemy, as a cupbearer. Cronus, the most paranoid king in the cosmos, was pouring wine from the hand of the exact son he'd spent a lifetime trying to erase, and he had absolutely no idea. Zeus had help. Medes, a Titan goddess renowned for her cunning, had prepared something special. A potion slipped into Cronus's next cup of wine. It wasn't poison. It was an emetic, something designed to make him violently sick. Cronus drank it without a second thought, and then his stomach turned on him in the worst possible way. First came the stone, the same one he'd swallowed years earlier, thinking it was his newborn son. Then one by one the rest came back up. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, 5 siblings Zeus had never met, disgorged alive and fully grown, having spent years trapped inside their own father. Imagine that reunion. 5 brothers and sisters, betrayed before they could even open their eyes, standing in front of the one sibling who'd escaped, and who was now asking them to help him tear down the man who'd swallowed them. They didn't need much convincing. But 6 young gods against an entire generation of titans was not a fair fight, and Zeus knew it. So he went looking for allies in the last place anyone would think to check. Tartarus, the deep prison where Uranus, Cronus's own father, had once locked away his strangest children, the Cyclopes, the 100-handed ones. Cronus had never freed them either. He'd left them down there to rot just like his father had, which meant Zeus had something no other Titan could offer, their freedom. He went down and released them, and in return the Cyclops, brilliant, terrifying craftsmen, forged the Olympians 3 weapons that would decide the war. For Zeus, a thunderbolt capable of splitting the sky itself. For Poseidon, a trident that could shatter the earth or calm the sea with a single strike. And for Hades, something stranger and just as deadly, a helmet that made its wearer completely invisible. With weapons like that, and the 100-handers hurling boulders like pebbles, Zeus declared war. It was called the Titanomachy, and it did not go quickly. For 10 straight years, Olympians and Titans fought each other to a standstill. Mountains were torn apart and thrown as weapons. The sea boiled. The sky itself seemed to catch fire. Neither side could land the decisive blow. 10 years of total stalemate, until Zeus finally unleashed everything he had. Thunderbolt after thunderbolt tore across the battlefield. The 100-handers buried the Titan front lines under an avalanche of stone, and the war that had gone nowhere for a decade ended almost all at once. The Titans broke. Cronus's reign, built on cannibalism, paranoia, and fear, collapsed in a single afternoon. With Cronus and the Titan tried to swallow Zeus out of existence, and his brothers had just taken his throne, and now they had to figure out who got what. The 3 of them, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, drew lots for the pieces of the universe. Poseidon drew the sea and took command of every ocean, river, and earthquake in the world. Hades drew the underworld and became lord of the dead, not evil, just unlucky in the draw, and Zeus drew the sky, which conveniently also made him ruler of everyone and everything beneath it. Funny how that worked out for the guy who organized the lottery. The male titans who'd fought against them were sent down into Tartarus, the same prison Uranus had once used, the same one Cronus had once used, now holding the very family members who'd built it. The cycle of imprisonment, it turned out, didn't end with Zeus. He just became the one running it. A handful of titans were spared, though, the ones smart enough to see which way the war was going and switch sides early. Among them, two brothers, Prometheus and Epimetheus, who hadn't fought against Zeus at all. As a reward, Zeus gave them a job: shape the first living creatures. Epimetheus went first, handing out gifts to every animal: speed, claws, fur, wings, venom, whatever they needed to survive. He was generous, maybe too generous. By the time Prometheus got around to shaping man out of clay, his brother had given away literally everything. No claws, no fur, no fangs, just a fragile, slow, hairless creature standing in a world full of animals built to kill it. Prometheus looked at what he'd made and decided he wasn't going to let his creation die out. So he did something no other god would dare. He stole fire from Olympus itself and gave it to humanity. Zeus was furious, and this wasn't the first time Prometheus had crossed him. Some say it went back even further, to a dinner where Prometheus tricked Zeus into choosing the worst cut of a sacrificial offering, leaving the good meat for mankind and the bones for the gods. Whatever the reason, Zeus decided the theft of fire could not go unanswered, and Prometheus would pay for it forever. Zeus had him dragged to a remote mountain and chained to the rock, where an eagle was sent to tear into his liver every single day. Because Prometheus was immortal, the liver grew back overnight, meaning the same agony over and over, with no end in sight. But Zeus wasn't finished. Punishing Prometheus wasn't enough. He wanted humanity to suffer for accepting the gift. So he ordered the creation of the first woman, Pandora, shaped from clay by the god Hephaestus, given beauty by Aphrodite, charmed by the other gods, and depending on which version you believe, just enough curiosity to be dangerous. Zeus sent her down to earth with one gift, a sealed jar, and a single instruction never to open it. Naturally, it wasn't long before curiosity won. The moment the lid came off, every hardship imaginable, disease, grief, envy, old age, war, poured out into the world for the first time. By the time Pandora managed to slam it shut, only one thing was left trapped inside: hope. And that right there is the moment the age of the gods truly begins. A new order built on a throne stolen by force, a titan chained to a mountain for helping mankind, and humanity itself sent into the world with nothing left to protect it but hope. It took 3 generations, 1 war, and an unbelievable amount of family betrayal, but the Greek gods finally had their throne.